Hello out there. It is Darren and Joe at Urban Hillsides Real Estate, again with another great topic for the week. And this, Darren, is about what is the definition of a mom and pop landlord versus a corporate landlord. And I know we were just talking about it. This comes from The Real Deal, and it's entitled City of LA to Study Who Qualifies as Mom and Pop Landlords. Council seeks to distinguish corporate versus small owners for participation in programs. So, what are those programs? What is this all circling around?
Um, well, there was a relevant program that existed up until October, um, and that was an assistance or rental assistance program for landlords,
Okay.
where the city was given money, and the city raised some local money as well to assist landlords who had tenants who could not pay rent. And, they called this a landlord benefit. Um, but it's the city who told the tenants they could stay where they are if they didn't pay rent. So,
Mm,
yes, it's a benefit, but yeah, I don't know about that. But it did exist. 12 units or
yeah,
less was the
right.
cutoff that they established.
And then the kicker we were talking about was, and have low income residential renters.
Right. So only if they were low income would they then help. Yes, that's correct. It really wasn't. Yes, they were being kind to landlords, but it was after they told landlords they were forced to absorb
Mm.
this broader issue rather than making it a broader city issue to be dealt with.
And and of course, scar over scar, these funds came from Measure ULA. So
Right.
that's another topic someday. But
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Correct.
that's not working well.
So, but
So
the
rental assistance. All right, that's one thing.
right. Second thing is if a unit is to be vacated, which is nearly impossible today, even if an owner wants to move back into their own unit.
Uh huh.
There was a lower rate for mom
Okay,
and pop landlords
I
to
see.
pay to relocate. You still had to pay to move into your own unit, but it was a lesser rate. And those are the only two programs I'm aware of that incentivize mom and pop landlords.
Got it. And then it's also, at least in this definition that they're trying to discover, it's also about the rent increases, right?
Right. So that's what triggered their. So there was a meeting recently about rent increases, and
Hmm.
it was originally proposed and was moving forward with a 7% increase. It's
Got it.
been over 3 years. It'll be almost 4 years since a
Hmm.
rent increase has been allowed in a very high inflationary environment with rapidly rising costs.
Uh huh.
Um, I would venture to say between costs and inflation, landlords have probably lost 20%. Would be a
Wow.
more realistic number. And it takes a long time to recoup that number. Um, but they ultimately reduced the rent increase from 7 to 4%. And as
Hmm.
a concession to the mom and pop landlords at the meeting, they brought up that there's no clear definition of what a mom and pop landlord is. And
Mm.
the concession is that they're going to go evaluate that and come up with a clear definition. But who knows what will come of that? Who knows what the number will be?
Hmm.
And there's no conversation about additional incentives or protection once they define that. But they are going to go out and define it. Then the article talks a little more about, what are some of the components that should be considered
Right.
when determining that number of units.
Right.
Um, yeah, there's a variety of numbers. I think, the article ended with a pretty high number that a corporation wouldn't be interested in less than 50 units. I think the number is higher than that. But
Hmm.
there's the factors that are would come into play on whether you consider something a corporate structure. It's really the economy of scale that has to come into play to
Right.
work for a corporation.
Right.
Um, they have to be able to have their layers. There's a lot of middlemen, there's a lot of systems in place, and they just want to run their systems. And they employ people in the process. Those middlemen are employees, and that's
Hmm.
great. but they have this whole system, and the system won't work in a smaller building. Uh, it just won't work. It's a more personal environment. The
Right.
costs of repairs and maintenance proportionately to the units are higher. If you replace a roof on a 12 unit building compared to a 25 unit building, it won't be 100% more on the bigger
Right.
building. So you're paying more per tenant on every maintenance component you deal with,
Right.
in regards to the bigger picture and the profitability of the building. Um, there will always be
So,
landlords, there will always be tenants. Uh,
right.
I think it's good to define this on some level,
Yeah.
but where they go from there is the big question.
Well, I was going to ask, just out loud, thinking out loud here, is looking at it as units a fair way to look at it, or is it about rent and revenue? I don't know. Or
Well,
is it some mix of those two things?
it could
I
be
don't
a
know.
mix, but there are a lot of factors that come into play if you're evaluating revenue. And obviously, I mean, look, people who are bad business people get tax benefits by not making money because
Yeah.
they didn't do a good job making money, right?
Right.
It could be the
Right.
same thing with an apartment building. Um, and maybe you could say they're making too much money. They're squeezing people too much. That's what we're hearing every day.
Right.
I personally believe there should be a little more of a catch-up number. Go out into the world and look at the reality of, okay, we've had massive increases
Right.
in minimum wage, and you got people out there paying $500-600 a month in rent. Is that really okay to say to that landlord for 3.5 years you can't raise their rent?
Right.
Or we're
Right.
going to reduce your 4% now. You can raise the rent $20.
Right.
Um, if you're
But we were
so
talking earlier. Yeah, we were talking earlier. Even at 4%, how long is it going to take
oh
to
it
for
no
that
well
landlord?
it'll be a decade to recoup
Right.
the increases that have happened over the past 3 years where rents couldn't be raised.
Yeah.
It's impossible to recover. Um, and so the system is not equally just. And I always say, look, if you want, if it's, and I get this, if you want to,
Mm.
if you think it's right to help those more in need, which I do, it should be a broader participation to help them, not
Right.
individual private citizens who are being forced to subsidize it. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
so
All
mom
right.
and pop will know the definition in a month or two, and then we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, look, guys, thanks for joining us once again, and stay tuned. We'll have more coming up very soon. Take care.
Right.
Bye.